Hello and welcome to Enlightened Empaths, your community for the spiritually awakened, where we discuss, explore, and connect with fellow empaths, healers, intuitives, and seekers.
Welcome back, empaths. We are so excited today to welcome Chaz Ebert. Chaz is a critically acclaimed film and TV producer and publisher of the preeminent movie review site RogerEbert.com. A prominent voice and successful business leader in the entertainment space, she shared a life with Pulitzer Prize winner and iconic movie reviewer Roger Ebert. In their work to foster empathy through cinema and around the globe, they established the Ebertfest Film Festival and the Roger Ebert Center for Film Studies at the University of Illinois. Chaz's latest book, It's Time to Give a FECK, not the other word, a FECK, Elevating Humanity Through Forgiveness, Empathy, Compassion, and Kindness, came out on May 7th of this year. Amidst a sea of national pessimism, an increasingly fragmented national political system, rising racial and cultural tensions, climate chaos, and global economic volatility, this inspirational book explores the fundamental human values of forgiveness, empathy, compassion, and kindness, the FECK Principles, topics that couldn't be more timely, topical, and relevant as we head towards one of the most important national elections in America's history. So welcome, Chaz, and thank you so very much for doing this with me today.
Thank you, Denise. I'm really happy to be here with you to talk about the FECK Principles and just bringing more kindness and actually compassion into this world. It's like you said, it's so sorely needed at this time.
It's everything. It's everything. And it feels like whatever topic we put on the table, it has to become divisive. People take a stand. They're emotionally so invested in being right rather than seeing the humanity in one another. And when I started to read through your book, I thought this needs to be given out to people in schools, in businesses, to remember that we're all in this together. It does not have to be so extreme. One of the things that I absolutely love and respect greatly about your approach is that you're not taking sides. You're not aligning with one side or the other, which is my premise as well, is that people are going to believe what they're going to believe, but we have to get to neutral ground.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes. And that's just what that's what I'm saying. Even though, I will be, of course, I have my opinion about who I would like to see win a presidential election. But what I want more than anything is for people to be able to find that common ground, because this election is something, no matter who wins, they're going to be the president for the whole nation. It's not red states, blue states, or, Democrats or Republicans. It's going to be the person who's going to be the governing everyone. And so we have to find some sort of common ground. And that's where my book comes in. In fact, I say that the book is from the playground to Congress, or from the playground to the House of Commons when I'm in Canada is what I say. I think that a lot of the things that we learned about how to play well, how to get along with each other on a playground are things that we still need to do. The only thing we didn't learn as much on the playground is forgiveness. And forgiveness is a real big part of the book. And to me, it's the most difficult thing. But I think that if you lead with love, if you lead with empathy, or if you lead with compassion or kindness, you can get to forgiveness. And sometimes you have to go to forgiveness first in order to get to some of the other principles. But it's just, Denise, I was telling you that I was really excited to talk to you today, not so much about my book, but about other things, and I'll tell you why. But as I'm talking to you right now, I'm just getting these feelings, and it is the thing I want to talk to you about the book too, because I think what you say and the approach that you advocate is so much what the book is all about. And And the reason that I was saying that I was looking forward to speaking with you today is because I grew up in a house with someone who was an empath, who was an intuitive, my mother. And
Oh,
it was it's very rare that I get a chance to talk to someone like you who understands it because you lived it. And I want to give you one example. When we were kids, I had 4 brothers and 4 sisters, but the first 5 kids kind of grew up together, and then the last 4 of us kind of grew up together. And so when we would play school, which was one of the things I used to love to play school, I wanted to be the teacher.
Yeah.
We would go into different rooms. So let's say me and my 2 sisters and my brother, we would go in different rooms in the house, and we would take our paper and pen to write and to do things. And we would play games. And one of the games that we would play, I laugh now because people think, you didn't think that was weird. We would play games. We would either draw shapes or write words. And the person in the other room had to see who could figure out the shape you were drawing or the word you were writing first. And people said, that sounds like the school for witches and warlocks. Said, no kids I knew played games like that when we were in grade school. And that was normal to us because those are the kind of things our mother would say, oh yeah, you can figure out what she's thinking and you're in another room. And we did it. Not always so perfectly, but these are things. And it was only later that I thought, oh yeah, that is weird. And we used to tease our mother saying, our mother is a witch and she knows how to do things. But she was just like one of the kindest, most wonderful. I called my mother a goddess, actually. So
yeah, that's beautiful. And you're right. And they actually did studies with that on the government level. The whole premise of men who stare at goats when they would try to train people with remote viewing and mind to mind and stuff. So you were just ahead of the curve.
Yeah, except that I did feel kind of like adult when I thought, oh yeah, this is not when people play school, this is not usually what they do. So.
No. And that's interesting because my father was very empathic and intuitive. I grew up thinking it was very normal. Mm-hmm. And then outside of home, it wasn't very normal. And I think that disconnect, but all of the work in your book and in your foundation and in what you're trying to bring globally is the same premise of be kind, connect, listen to what other people have to say, feel it in your heart, because we all want to feel valued. We all want to be seen.
We want to be seen. We want to be heard. We want to be loved. And I think that, I'm really getting really excited talking to you because the other thing that you use the word connect. And even though that's what I'm talking about in the book, but today I'm feeling it more that the connection, we're so disconnected. Our devices sort of disconnect us and we think that we're staying connected because we can, communicate 24 hours a day on those devices, but it's really not. I mean, there is a certain sort of connection, but the human connection is what we're missing, or the connection where we're deeply listening to people. And I think deep listening is something that you learn as an intuitive, but you can learn that as you don't have to be an intuitive to learn that. You can practice deep listening, and that it creates connection. With the election coming up in November, I was so happy to see the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, talk about bringing back the joy, because that's the other thing. I think that sometimes people think that if you talk about joy, if you're talking about happiness, they think that's trivial, but it's so important. I think that if we feel the joy in our lives, if we feel the joy in other people, if we see the light from another person, if we do something to help alleviate the suffering of another person, that brings us joy, it brings them joy. And I think that really, it creates a connection that is to help, that really helps us solve problems. I think it creates a connection that helps us just, that there's so much that we can do, going from a joyful state.
Well, and those are the stepping stones to get to forgiveness. You can't just jump right into forgiveness. There are stepping stones to get there. And I see forgiveness as on the same plane as grief. You have to do it in your own process, in your own timeline.
Yes.
And you may have had horrific things happen, or you may have grown up with choices that were taken away from you, or there's so many variables to that. But what it comes down to is at some point you have to look within and you have to see that soul light in other people.
Right.
And it is not about borders or politics or medicine or economics. It is about heart.
Yes.
And I believe that in my soul to be true. This is personal opinion, but if you can keep people angry and afraid, you can control them.
Oh,
And
absolutely. Absolutely.
And if you come to this place of joy, then you're able to step out of that and you start to get clarity and you start to remember that your opinion counts and that you can think for yourself. And that seems like it's a huge part of your work in the book, is reminding people these are human components. This is not something that has to do with your socioeconomic background or what your talents, your abilities, who you know. It has to do with being a human being.
Yeah. The forgiveness section, when I was writing that section, I cried so many tears because even thinking about, the Amish community, I talk about the nickel mines community, where the man went into that school and killed those little girls. And I still, even though I wrote these chapters on forgiveness, and I said that's the hardest part for me, I still can't understand how some people found the depth of whatever in their soul to go in to forgive someone that quickly. But I also talked to people and they said it's not a one and done thing, just like you say. It's a process. And sometimes you can forgive and you have to forgive again and forgive again. Even if you're not talking to the person, even in your own head, you are forgiving that person and relieving that person and relieving yourself, because it's a weight on your shoulders. And you don't want to feel like a victim. And, the talks that I had with some of the people, some Palestinians and Israelis who came to my film festival, this was in 2016. They were a group called Combatants for Peace. And they told me about some of the things they had gone to jail for. And they were really some horrendous things, but they served their time and they got out, but they said that they were doing it, against each other. They thought that this is what you do. And then one day this group formed and they said we were going to lay down our weapons against each other. And we wanted to find a way to forgive each other. And we wanted to find a way, we had to find some empathy. We had to try to put ourselves in their shoes to see what did it feel like to be. And we discovered we all want the same thing for our families. We just thought we hated each other so much that we had to kill each other. And I think about that today because that same group still exists. And I know that they are trying to do things in Gaza. I don't know what kind of success they're having. I'm not in touch with them right now. I did contact someone around October, right after October 7th last year, but I haven't been in touch recently. And I'm just so hoping that people on both sides will listen to them, but it's just really difficult. I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer.
No, because there is no answer. And this is old and learned and deep and
right.
I've
complicated.
It's very complicated. And I've been blessed to live all over the country and work with a lot of different people in education over the years and different dynamics. And I think when you get into places where it has been the generational trauma or the
Yes.
handing it down or that people just think that's what they're supposed to do. But the beautiful part in that is I strongly feel people are starting to say, I don't have to do it this way anymore.
I don't have to do it this way, and I don't want to do it this
Yes.
way.
And that
Yes.
brings tears to my eyes.
Oh, me too. I don't want to do this. I don't want to hand this down to my children. There is another way. And in fact, I was just reading something that someone wrote from there recently saying there as words as simple as there is another way. Because you have to change your mindset too. I was going to say something about Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and you probably read that in my book, in my talk with him, where he talked about losing friends when he was on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission with Nelson Mandela, because some of his friends did not want him to forgive people who had committed acts under the old apartheid regime. And he said, you cannot move forward. Our nation will not move forward without bloodshed if you don't forgive. There has to be a path to redemption. And he was the one who first alerted me to the fact that forgiveness is not only for the other person, it's for you too. And to me, that was a radical thought. No, if you did something to me and I'm forgiving you, I'm taking the high road and I'm the one who's forgiving you and I'm giving you. And he said, yeah, but what are you doing to yourself? You are being a victim. You're carrying this weight on your shoulders that you don't even know. You can't even move forward. You can't even think about even liking, let alone loving someone until you open that and you open up that space in your heart. And I was amazed when he said that, because I had never thought of forgiveness that way. And I thought that was pretty radical. And now I think of it as it seems like I should have seen it all along. But forgiveness is so big. It's so big and it's so wonderful and it's so needed.
And it's much easier to stay either in a victim modality or in a mentality. This happened to me. It's not my fault. This is my society, or this is what my culture believes, or this is what. But when you're brave enough to say that doesn't align with me, then it can lean to seeing the compassion, because so many people that are brutally angry and difficult and having a hard time forgiving, they're afraid, they're scared, there's a fragility to that. The forgiveness and the compassion probably are, and kindness is an overall umbrella that we can all stand under. But when you can feel compassion for someone's choices that you may not agree with, then you know that you're on that road to being able to truly forgive. And you're right. When you don't release it or forgive, you're going to hold that. You're going to hold it in your cellular memory. You're going to pass it down. And one thing that I love right now, that I love the collective energy, that we're all tapping into that. And so many people are having these insights at the same time around the globe, and pinpoints of light, and they're starting to show up. But there's this beautiful need for community, for like-mindedness, for shared vocabulary. Do you find that as you share these principles with people, that it is bringing groups together?
Absolutely. It's funny, when I first wrote the book, I didn't want to, I actually had it written a couple of years before I actually published it. And because I was holding it, I was like, who wants to read a goody two-shoes book like this? Who cares about this? And then, my daughter and some of my employees and friends said, no, you started writing this book. It's good. You need to get it out there. And I was a little afraid. I don't know what I was afraid of, but I actually, before this morning, I don't meditate every day, but do you meditate?
I walk, I pray, I listen to nature. I don't actually sit and om, but I do have quiet time with spirit every day.
Okay. So I used to meditate every day. But now mainly what I do is I will sit and listen or meditate I love being in nature. And sometimes when I'm really down, I like going out and around a lot of greenery or trees or grass. Because I live in the city, and so I live near the lake, or I'll go to the lake, to Lake Michigan, and that's where I talk to my mother, who's in the spirit world, or just talk to nature out at the lake. Our lake is so big, it's like the ocean. But so I'll either go to greenery or I'll go to the lake. But this morning, I got on my knees and I said a prayer, and then I sat and did a little meditation because today feels different for me than another day. And I don't know why. And I'm trying to figure out what's going to happen today that I'm preparing for. And so when I get these messages to go in or to stop and to be still to figure out what's going on, it almost feels like, the air feels a little heavier, and it's like, oh, okay, I don't know. I'm just going to be a student and I'm going to sit here. And when I was in prayer this morning, actually, the feelings that I had today they were almost diametrically opposed. First, there was a feeling of kind of like wild, radical joy. I was really so happy. And I was, this morning, I had a business meeting and I was so happy. And people were like, why are you so happy? I said, I don't know, but I was so happy and it made everybody happy. It was contagious. And then on the other hand, I don't feel any dread, like something bad is going to happen, but I know something different is going to happen. And I don't know what it is. And so as I'm talking, so you have to forgive me. My thoughts keep wandering off because I'm still trying to feel out what is it. And I just don't know. So
I can validate that for you though, because I've been feeling the same thing. I've been feeling, and it's not a gloom and doom. It's not fear-based. It just feels like a change, an awareness. It's paying attention. But you're right. I had a silly wave earlier. I was getting ready to take the dogs to work, and I just got silly and upbeat and joy and just like all by myself, just laughing. And I thought, I'm not complaining. I love feeling this way, but there was no catalyst for it. There was nothing that brought that on. So I think that there's something energetically that is trying so hard to shift. So going back to your mom for a minute, because I truly believe our ancestors are trying to help us through this transition. I think the work we're doing is in reverence to them. It's helping them evolve on the other side. Do you feel like your mom helped you write this book?
Oh, no doubt about it. Okay. And sometimes when I really put it down, it seems like she kind of kicked me and said, not like a kick with a kick, but like, what are you doing? And actually what she told me is this, because I remember the year that she passed away, she told me, she said, you're always hiding your light under a bushel basket and you have to stop doing that. And so I had this, when my mother passed away, it was in 1999, I think it was right around Thanksgiving time. And I had this, it was like a dream, but I say it didn't really feel like a dream. It seemed like it was one of those, what do you call when you have your out-of-body experience? I guess an OB out-of-body experience. But I was sitting with her in an apartment, a little apartment, and I realized that it wasn't her apartment, but she was sitting on one side of the table, I was sitting on the other. And I was in my mode, I used to practice law, and I was in my legal, I've got to go and I'm busy and I got to do this. She just sat and she smiled. And I looked in her eyes and I realized, I said, wait a minute, you're dead. She said, shook her head, yes. I said, and you came back before wherever you're going to see me? She said, yes. I said, oh, I took off my coat. I said, I'm going to just sit down and stay with you, because she smiled And she kind of looked at the door, and I thought, oh, well, what would have happened if I had gotten up to open the door? I got up and opened the door, and I would have stepped right out to the stars and the
Wow.
galaxy. It was like, I was like, oh, what? Where are we? We were, oh,
Wow.
it was so, and so I closed the door and stepped back in and sat down at the table. And I said, I'm going to stay with you for as long as you can stay here. And that was the last time that I saw her to communicate with her like that. But she comes back when some things happen from time to time, or just a feeling or whatever.
Right. And I'm saying this with love and respect. You have so much of your mother in you. I mean, you're doing all the things that people are intuitives, that are sensitive, that are empaths. You're describing it beautifully. And I think when you're blessed to have both hemispheres light up, you have that empathic, that creative, that intuitive side with that logical, grounded attorney side. Sometimes it's hard to merge both those rivers together. But I feel like what a beautiful visitation from your mother, because even all these years later, it's as real and vivid as it was when you met with her.
Yeah.
And I love that you got up and opened the door and peeked.
That still scares me more than any, the thought about stepping out into. And I thought of that today when I saw those astronauts who are, they were supposed to be at the space station for 8 days. And now they're saying they may have to be there for 8 months. And because they don't know if the Boeing Starliner is fixed enough for them to return to Earth safely. So, but at least there are other astronauts up there with them. I still wouldn't want to be out there.
No, and that, when they've ever talked to anyone who has spent extended time in space, it changes you.
Yeah.
And I think what I love right now is that when things start getting a little bit squirrely, I'll say, Denise, this is a time of transformation. Mm-hmm. And I truly believe that we agreed to come onto the planet at this time and say, okay, and now Spirit is saying it's time to step up and help. Yes. What are you going to do to help? And I feel like that's your work, is how can I help empower other people to see that light and to realize there's another way to do this.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I'm learning for myself is it's forcing me to, okay, I wrote this book. Am I living it? Am I living the book? This is forcing me to do it. And this election period is forcing me to not only talk the talk, but to walk the talk. And it is a daunting task to have someone like, the former president saying certain the things that he says and thinking the things that I thought about him and the way that I have to express them now, because I do believe what I wrote. I do believe that I want to give a FECK. I want to have more compassion for people. I want to put myself even in the shoes of someone whose views are so radically different than my own, to understand, how did he get this way, or why does he think this way, or is there any hope for changing the way he thinks, or is there any way for meeting him at some point? How do I meet somebody like that, or what do I do? So I wrote it. I wrote it, but I have to live it. And it is forcing me. I can tell I'm changing each day that I go out and I talk about this book. It really does force me to, I'm going to say, to be a better person, because I now can sit across. As a lawyer, of course, I was taught to argue for both sides. You learn things. If you're going to advocate for someone, you have to know what the other side is, the argument is, in order to make your own argument better. But in life, I'm trying to actually feel those things, not just say, this is the other side. I want to feel something when I think about someone else who thinks differently than I do.
During the last presidential election, and I work one-on-one with a lot of folks, and I got off a call, and I'm in the mode. I'm here. I'm not here to take sides. I'm neutral. And I got off a call, and someone's political beliefs were so everything that I'm not. Everything. And I got off the call, and I was upset. I was physically upset, and I felt reactive. I felt very reactive to the whole situation.
And what did you do?
And then I took a walk, because that's always my default, is go blow it off. Don't say anything. And then I went to sleep. And the next day I journal every morning, and I was writing, and I thought, Denise, you can't judge them because they believe that as much as you believe what you believe. And it isn't wrong. It's just different. And I think that's your work right there, is you might not agree with what someone else is saying because it doesn't align with what you believe, but you can't discount someone else's belief system as being wrong.
That's right.
Based on, but your work of saying, you have to walk the talk. That's the key, because I see so many people that are not thinking on their own. They're just reacting, or they're sharing memes, or they're putting things out that may or may not be helpful. How did you jump the fence to that, to really embracing FECK?
I think it's because, okay, I can say it on this program.
Yes.
And I said it once before. It was actually a dream that helped me. I remember before Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Left this earth, he talked about going to the mountaintop, and he went to the other side, and he saw the new day. I had this doesn't mean I'm going anywhere. I hope. I'm not ready.
You have lots to do. No.
But I keep having these dreams of walking through this town where everyone is so intuitive that when you walk past them, you can get a sense, the energy comes in so strongly, and you can tell whether the person is a good person or not a good person. And you can feel it in this town that I'm walking through. Most of the people are so good, and I'm bowled over by the depths of their goodness. I can feel it. This guy in a white shirt, I remember this white Chris Brooks Brothers shirt. I walked past this man, and it was almost the energy was so strong. It was like I said, oh, he is so good. He really believes what he believes, and he's a good man. And I walked past someone, and I said, oh, she's working on it. But and when we looked at each other, we were looking at each other and communicating it was just like mental telepathy. We all communicating with each other, and we know, and it's just a slight nod, just like, oh yeah, I got you. Hello, I got you. I see you. I know you. Oh, I feel you. And I keep having these dreams of a place like this existing. And I was saying, I wonder if that's the mountaintop that, when Dr. Martin Luther King saw his, and he saw the other side. I do believe, because before I thought, okay, that's great. That's utopia. It's never going to exist unless I go to some little small island in Fiji. And, there are just a few people there, and we can do that. But no, I actually believe that we are going through some really colossal change. And I do think that the energy is shifting, and that people, it's not going to be like a paradigm shift like that overnight. But I do think that we are going toward that, and people are seeing it, and people want it, and they're hungering for it and thirsting for it, and they're going to work for it, and we're going to work together. And that all the things that I thought that I was saying before that sound silly or goody two shoes, no, I think there are things that are going to come to be, and that I can't say it's not going to happen. I just have to keep working at it, even if it's person by person, changing myself, helping to do something for someone so help open their eyes, or
Right.
I don't know, finding people like you who
But
are working toward it.
I I am in awe because you're articulating what so many people are feeling right now. So many people, and I don't see that as delusional. I don't see that as rose-colored glasses. I really believe, truly believe on a collective level that we're trying to come together as humanity. And we got a glimpse of that during the pandemic, where
Yes.
there was an equality, where people were helping each other, where there was,
Yes.
and the skies cleared and people were more compassionate and considerate. So we got a little glimpse of it.
Yes.
So we know it's possible.
It's possible. Yeah.
Right. And then we see these little people coming onto the planet, and they are pure light.
Yeah.
So I really do hope and pray that we're getting it ready for these younger generations to step into a world that won't have this divisiveness, that won't have this deep-rooted anger and animosity and need to control, because we really can do this. We can get along. I believe that.
I was at a seminar yesterday, and I heard a speaker in San Diego. I'm going to pronounce his last name wrong, but his name is something like Eric Weinmeier. He's the blind mountain climber.
Yes.
He's a motivational speaker, and he's climbed Mount Everest while blind. He's actually gone whitewater rafting down the Colorado River, where he almost died because he did something a little too soon and his raft turned over, and he had lost communication with the people who were rafting behind him in other rafts, and they didn't know that. And in fact, they had also flipped over. They almost died. But he was doing all of these scary things, not being able to see. And he made 2 points that I heard. I think you hear what you need to hear when you need to hear it. Because I'm sure I've heard these things before, but I never thought about them this way. 2 points that actually changed me from yesterday to today. Number one, think of we think of adversity and challenges as, okay, these are, things would be great if we could just go from A to B without all of these challenges. He said, no, think of adversity as part of your path to success. And when he said it, I heard it for the first time. I'm thinking, oh, I got to go and change all of my charts. For instance, I'm working on this musical now. It's a musical it's like Jesus Christ Superstar, but it's about Mary and the rise of the divine feminine consciousness.
Ooh.
And it's so big and it's so overwhelming and it's so scary. I thought, I can't do it. And yes, I can do it. What I need to do, instead of saying, this is how I start, these are the songs I'm going to write, this is how I'm going to write it, these are the people I want. I have to build in my adversity. What are the adverse things? What are the challenges in my way? Put those in as part of my plan and say, this is point A, this is point, I get to point E, but in between, I build the adversity in instead of thinking of oh, wow, what if this happens or I can't do it? No, build it in part of the plan. And I had never heard it said that way before. So adversity is part of the plan, part of the path to success. And the other thing is that he said that was so profound is think of grief and loss as energy. Don't think of it as, oh, I'm just so sad. My husband died. My mother died. My sister has cancer. Take that grief and that sadness is an energy that you can take and shape into something that's going to lead you on that path to success. And when he said it, I could feel the energy. I could feel the energy in there are so many things, in many ways that we can use, because we know everything is energy. And there are ways that we can harness it and channel it and use it for good. So
that is so, so beautiful. And what I've found over the years, the people who truly make a difference as healers, as readers, as mediums, as speakers, as educators, as whatever. Usually in spirit will show me snip, snip, snip. And when I'm speaking with someone in spirit, they'll sort of snip, snip, snip. And that always means to me, people know little segments, but they don't know the whole timeline. And usually that person could sit across from anyone and understand on a core visceral level what they're feeling, what they're experiencing, what they're going through, because they've been through it or through something comparable. And I think that's the key to the empathy and compassion and forgiveness is feeling the feels that someone else went through and realizing that you can use that loss and that grief and that pain that has gotten you this far as a catalyst to reach out your hand and help someone else step up.
Yes, yes. You know, I wanted to ask you, Denise, what gives you hope when you wake up in the morning?
I really think that we're part of everything. I really believe that in my soul. We are a species on the planet. We're interconnected. And the more you see your place in that whole web of things, and you realize how. So I heard I'm going to jump the fence a little bit, but I heard someone say the pale blue dot. And I hadn't heard that before. And it was just the insignificance of all of it. Satellite turned and took a picture of the Earth, and it was just this pale blue dot, and that it showed us the insignificance. And that's why I love going to like dark sky places, and you look up and you realize that you are just a little dust mote in all of it. But we've been given this beautiful, beautiful opportunity to live, to experience. So that I think that's what keeps me going, is that I want to experience as much as I can while I'm still here.
Right.
And I want to see, I don't care how many pairs of rose-colored glasses I need. I want to see the good in people. I really do. How about you?
I think pretty much what you said, because I think that it's amazing that out of everything that exists, and you know, Roger and I used to love to read the Tuesday New York Times, because I think that was the science section. And almost every week they had an article about more stars discovered, more planets discovered. And until they said, oh, you know, it's probably infinite. We used to think it was a finite galaxy or finite universe. No, it's probably infinite. And we just laughed. We said, of course it is. And so I also, okay, this also gives me hope, thinking, when are we going to finally realize what's in other places, what's on other planets, or what's on not just a dust-covered planet that we hope to live on one day, but when will we actually connect with the other inhabited planets? When I was a little girl, I used to lie in the grass and look up at the sky and make faces. And I would say, I wonder if the me who lives on another planet is making a face, if she's looking down at me, or what is she doing? Or I would look in the mirror and I would say, I wonder if I'm looking in this mirror now and I'm smiling, is the other me dancing, or the other me doing something else?
Yeah.
I don't even know where I got those thoughts, but I had a sense of living other places. And I really do want to know. I don't know. I want to know, do we really have those giant alien bodies at the Smithsonian? Can somebody really just tell us? Has anyone told you whether that exists or not? I was talking to an astronaut, and he said, he made me think that maybe he knew, but he couldn't tell me or something. But I don't know. I just wonder, there's so many things, so many wonderful, amazing things that happen. I think that it's amazing that the human body has the ability to heal itself, to correct itself, to do things. There's so many things that happen that it's just so amazing. I think the whole wonderment of things, and plus I love people, I love things. My mother used to say, there's no such thing as a boring person. She said, you're boring if you don't find a way talk to that person and find out what's interesting. She said, because there is something interesting about everybody. And
Yes.
I don't know.
That has always been everybody wants to be heard and or seen for just being unique, for being worthy, for being worthwhile. And I've always looked at the whole universal thing because I do have a very sciencey mind as well. And I want
Yes.
proof and I want evidence.
Yes.
I'm not airy fairy woo with but the one thing that I always come back to is it would be so arrogant to think that this is it in the vastness of all that is. How could we possibly think that we're some kind of elevated being in everything? That doesn't make sense.
Right. I mean, who built those pyramids?
That's right.
And how did they get the arithmetic to do it? The geometry.
So, do you speak on your book? Do you promote? How can people find your work? Because it's amazing, Chaz. Thank you.
Okay, I am actually going out to, I'm actually on a book tour to talk about It's Time to Give a FECK, and I'm actually starting a new campaign called #Civility Now. And that's the part that has to do with politics and encouraging elected officials, congressional officials, people, presidential candidates to inject more civility in the discourse, because I first put a press release out, maybe it was like a Thursday of one week, and nobody looked at it. And that Sunday, I think it was that Saturday or Sunday, that the former President Trump was speaking at a rally and got shot. And then people started calling. They said, how did you know this was going to happen? I said, I didn't know this was going to happen. I was just putting out a call to tone down on the rhetoric because it could lead to violence. I didn't know that violence was going to happen. I didn't have a crystal ball. Well, sometimes I do have a crystal ball for some things, not for that. But I said, so it's just something that I feel so strongly in my stomach and in my heart and my chest. Sometimes it gets tight when I see the seen as being so vitriolic toward each other. And I think that we do need to find that common ground, because not only are people watching in our country, but other countries are watching us. Other countries want to see us fight and tear each other apart. So because that gives them a chance to step in and do whatever they want to do. And who knows, maybe some intergalactic countries are also watching us. Right. And but I think that they do want us to do better. We all have to do better.
I had this conversation with a friend of mine recently. I said, I just want to see respect.
Yes.
You may not agree, but you can respect what someone has to say, and just name calling and throwing dirt. And it's an embarrassment.
It's an embarrassment.
It is an embarrassment. And it's not only self-degradation to even put yourself in that place, especially when you're a very seen person.
Yes.
But it also is, it's not what you were hired to do. There's no other profession where you could get away with that and it would be encouraged. Maybe there is, but how can we bring people together if we're finding fault and calling names? And I love, and anything that we can do, that our listeners can do to help #civility now. That is beautiful, because you're right. This is a global issue.
It is, we're going to have, even though, I say that I feel that we are moving toward, moving toward more civility, moving toward more positive things, and more people are waking up. But I also had another vision. And this was a vision of, there is the other side. But I had a vision of going through some really hard times before we get to the other side. And that's a vision that scares me, but it doesn't scare me as much because in the vision, we actually did get to the other side, but there was like a lot of things that were not good that happened before we got there. But there's a tipping point where we get more and more people on this side of going toward good. And little things, this is what I try to encourage when I talk to young people. I say, you know what, little things that you can do every day. Number one, stop the name calling, look for the good in somebody. Do things like journaling. In my book, I have some pages where you can go in and you can write things.
Nice.
And you think of people you want to forgive or people that you think should forgive you, or can you think of something nice, random acts of kindness, little things, that you can do. Say hello to your neighbor, or say hello to the new kid in school, or don't just little things help, because I really do think that the ripple effect, I've seen the ripple effect take place, and I know that it can happen. And I also know the other thing, Denise, that I wake up feeling sometimes is the love, the overwhelming love that I know is out there. And I know that, some mornings I wake up and I feel like the sun is inside me, and my job is to beam it out that day. So I do.
Yes.
Sometimes I go and I beam out the sun.
Yeah.
Because it sounds silly, but I beam
No.
out the sun at everybody that I come, and people react. I think they feel it, they know it, or whatever. But I do think there's so many things that we can do. And with our politicians, there's so many things that we can do. Those people who are making our laws can listen to each other, and they don't have to do things that incite violence, really. So
Exactly. And that's the key, is that this really is not about who you want to sit in the big chair. This is about being a human being. I have a dear friend. He's well into his 80s, and his wife passed a couple of years ago. And we were we love to talk about philosophical things. And he said, Denise, the only thing we haven't figured out is how to get along with each other. He said, look at all the accomplishments and the beauty. And every year we have this thing going, and he'll come and he said, well, I just wanted to let you know, I just put my apple trees in. Every year he plants apple trees. He said, I'll never see those trees. I'll never eat those apples, but it's important to take care of Mother Earth. It's important to have hope. It's important to, and I think that's what you're trying to instill with your book is it's dark, and it would be delusional to think that it's all going to be rose petals and happy and let's link arms and sing. But that comes back to, if we can build these communities of like-minded people who can see the light in each other, who can say, I may not agree with you, but you're another human being.
Yes.
That's going to get us over that and into that place where people are able to coexist again.
Absolutely. And we must do it. I am so, somebody asked me a question. I think, I don't know whether they're trying to be funny, whether they thought I was being too idealistic. And they said, well, what are your shields against nuclear war? And which I thought was a strange question. And I said, I still, oh, it's the air and water show. I don't know if you can hear the planes going.
No, I can't.
Yeah, okay. I know, because I said something about love as a force. And I said, I think love is such a strong force. At first, I was almost afraid to use the word love. I did use respect, and I did use civility. I said, but actually, I'm talking about love as a pure force of energy is, I think, one of the strongest forces in existence. And and they said, how can love stop nuclear war?
The power of love is, historically, we can look at all the different examples of when that has shifted things. And I say this sometimes, is that I'm a pretty private, quiet person. I keep to myself. I'll say, I don't always like people, but I love them.
Yes.
I do love people. They're interesting. They're funny. There's so many different, it's a fascinating time to be on the planet. It really is. But sometimes, and I, being a behavior specialist and a special ed teacher all those years, people will choose behaviors that aren't always endearing.
Mhm.
But they're still human beings and we can care about them. So
The one thing that I missed during the pandemic is being able to hug people or even to shake their hands. We were so afraid of each other. And even now, sometimes I was at an event the other night, and because I had been at an event the previous day or two where somebody said, oh, I think that person had COVID and a few people there came down with it. I was at this event. I didn't want to shake hands with people, and people were looking at me really funny.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the evening, I just kind of went inside myself as I was sitting there, looked at everybody, and I tried to feel into their energy. And at the end, I got up and I went around, I hugged each person who was there at the table. And it changed the whole atmosphere of everything. And everything just became so much more loving and light. And I don't know, it's just, and I said, you know what, I've got to start hugging again, because
yeah,
I mean, hugs are they are important. And I don't know.
they are. And it's healing. It's healing ourselves. It's bringing together commonality, the shared energy, your auric fields come together.
Yeah.
And it's a lot nicer than the alternatives.
Can I ask you one other question?
Yes, please.
So I know that you also, different people have different gifts. I never really knew how to classify my mom's gifts, because some of them were clairaudience, some were clairsentient, some were clairvoyant, some were just different things, little pieces of different things. And for me, sometimes it's something that I hear, like I actually hear, like a friend was dating, not even dating anyone. And I got up one morning and I heard something say, tell Carolyn she's getting married. And so I called her, I said, I heard you're getting married. And she said, I'm not even dating anyone. Of course, she got married that year, but she got divorced the same year. But anyway,
it still counts. It still counts.
So sometimes you hear things, sometimes I dream things and everything. Because I know you have an ability to connect with the spirit world, probably more so than other people. Everybody can do a little bit of something. And people say, oh, everybody has these gifts. But no, you know what? We all know how to do math, but we're not all Einstein. We all can paint, but we're not all Van Gogh. How do you separate out? Do you have to ask it to come and sit with it for you to access spirit, or does it just happen as you're talking to someone, or sometimes just without?
It can happen when I'm just talking to someone, and I've worked really hard over the years and this is something that I teach people that I work with, is turn it on and off. You have to be able to turn it on, because when people say, oh, I'm open all the time and I always am feeling it, you can't exist on the planet. And that's not why we're here. We have physicality for a reason. It's not always to be out in the ethers. But the way that it works for me is that, like, I could read your energy psychically and pick up on, physical things or career stuff or all that stuff. So I'm reading your auric field. You're doing the same exact thing with someone in spirit, because they still have their energetic imprint, and they're going to use whatever your memories, experiences, expertise are to bring through that feeling. I mean, you can do more advanced where you can ask someone in spirit to blend with your energy, and you'll start to move like them or feel like them, or you'll you might get a physical pain, or so it's exactly what you said earlier. It's all energy and vibration. And I do think with practice, everyone can make this connection. It's a natural thing as a mammal that we have this ability, to connect. But do I think it comes more easily to some people than others? 100%. Yeah. What's interesting to me is when the world started to fall apart during the pandemic, and people were forced to go within, forced to take that time, amazing how many people started to revisit their own intuition and their own inner knowing and their connection with spirit.
Mhm.
So when you said earlier that we'll get to a place where it's telepathic and we'll be able to communicate, we'll be able to feel that energy, I think this was the beginning steps of that.
Mhm.
Yeah. And you can build. So if you're clairaudient, I would guarantee you love music. You get a lot of random songs, lyrics. I just wanted to turn a car radio, which usually means spirit will come through with certain bands or songs, or you'll be walking into the grocery store and you'll hear a band that someone you loved was their favorite and it just brings it back. Or you'll get an earworm where you can't get a song out of your head. Often if you Google the lyrics, that's a message from spirit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because
Okay.
if they're going to
That's happened.
use whoever they were when they were here, they're going to use that to come through for you. People keep that little soul light so you know it's them,
Mhm.
which I think is fantastic.
Well, I think I want to start studying. I mean, for years, I kind of, ran away from it, and I wanted to be in the world. But
Yeah.
I think it's time we can be in the world and of the world, and still, I think I want to study. So
I think it is personal opinion. I think you're already doing it, and it's just that you're going to be like, oh, that's all that is? I think I've been doing that my whole life. But thank you. This has been so much fun. This has
thank you.
been wonderful.
I'm sorry that I didn't talk more about my book
Oh,
or
no. But the people who listen to this show are kind, empathic. They're seekers. Everything you said was so spot on for our listeners. So thank you. And if you could share again the name of your book and where people could find you, and I'll promote it through the show notes and all of that. But thank you so very much.
my book is called It's Time to Give a FECK, FECK, which is an acronym for Elevating Humanity Through Forgiveness, Empathy, Compassion, and Kindness. And really, it's all about unity and love. Sold wherever books are sold, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books Inc., everywhere.
Thank you. And where can people find you online or on social media?
Well, they can find me at Chaz Ebert, ChazEbert, or my website, if people like movies, my website is rogerebert.com. But
Beautiful.
actually, if somebody wants to subscribe to something and talk more about the book or those kind of principles, I'm at giveafeck.com, GIVEAFECK.com. But I think it's like HTTP giveafeck.com or something.
Yeah. Plus, it's fun to say, isn't it?
It's getting easier. The publisher didn't want me to call it this because it was too much like the other F word. And I said, no, this is a 4-letter F word that means love.
Oh, and when I read the title of this, that's what popped into my head I was thinking, this is absolutely perfect because that has become such a part of a daily conversation.
Yes.
And you're bringing the balance in. Everything that you're doing is about bringing balance, about helping people remember that it doesn't have to be harsh.
Right.
And it's not being rose-colored glasses and Pollyanna and, airy. It's not. It's more, we have to see the humanity in each other.
Denise,
and we
I
can.
love talking to you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everything. I have to just keep listening to you.
Yes. And thank you. And everyone, thank you for listening. And please check out Chaz's work. She's delightful. And I'm sure going to hear a lot more from her in the coming years. And as always, please remember to show up, do great things, and share your light. Take care.